I'm so excited to have you on here. So,
Yay.
okay, so we met um, 2019 in India doing our yoga teacher training. And at that point, what had gotten you to India? And then I know you had a practice in San Francisco. So what was the timeline between San Francisco and India? What made you
Yeah.
start traveling at that point?
Yeah, that was in 2018, I believe, that I was going through a big process of deciding whether to start business, a bit like a bigger business in San Francisco. So I was getting the call to develop a um, business plan for a metaphysical bookshop and gift shop, crystal shop with a learning center in the back because I was gathering all these metaphysical teachings and it felt really appropriate. And the office space that I had above this, the space below my office was empty, and I was in negotiations with the owner of the building, and I just it was very like it was really exciting because the owner of the lease for the office spaces above, that collective, he was very close to retirement and was going to pass this along. And so I was really thinking the big picture of having this whole healing center in San Francisco. And then I don't know exactly when, but all of a sudden that kind of got that door closed. And then I think he passed the lease to somebody else. And then um, I had my home lease fall out, like the person, someone who owned the building of my apartment that I was living in sold the building underneath us. So there was this whole scramble of housing going on. And that was probably the fourth time I had moved in the last 4 years in San Francisco at that point in time. And it was just the housing crisis there was like really alive with the amount of tech people coming in and just displacement of housing. So I think I just felt like San Francisco was spitting me out. And I was like, okay, I surrender. I'm just going to do something to just chill out and just get out of this whole grind for a minute. And I came from a dance background and always was a mover. So yoga was always part of my life. And I taught movement, I taught somatics. I thought, why not get a yoga teacher training under my belt and have that certification as well. And I knew Yoga Rishi Vishvaketu from some of the festival stuff that I was doing. I was doing bending and healing at festivals. And so I met him and took his class, and he's just such a classical yoga teacher, but with all this joy. He really goes, like, one of his mantras is happiness is your birthright. And so I really
Oh,
appreciated that, being like a joyologist in my own right. I'm just like, yes, let's
right.
do it. So that's what took me to India. A boundary. I knew that like I was like, I can go and be in India and drop in. And then I gave myself like a year to just explore and travel.
Right. And what was your like takeaway from being in India? Or I mean, I'm sure you have multiple, but
Yeah, gosh, being in India and being in the ashram and living ashram life, I realized there was a level of like what they call sattvic, right? There's rajasic and tamasic and sattvic, and these are like Vedic principles around kind of low tone, heavy energy, and the rajasic being like high, um, kind of sometimes frenetic energy, and that sattvic being like this bliss state, right? So their idea about keeping the ashram pretty like clean and clear, that not a lot of artwork, like just very like simple walls, simple accommodation. We were supposed to wear white every day in the ashram. I actually found that quite challenging because I didn't feel that it was sattvic at all for me. Like it felt
mm,
very heavy and austere in a way that wasn't light. And so I found myself like really wanting to wear a lot of color when I left the ashram, and pattern, and
yes,
wanting to be in like the fabric, like in a clothing shop where there's just fabric and texture and like color and like mirrors on the textiles. And so I found myself really like wanting a lot of that in my experience. But I love
yeah,
the
and
movement and I
also
love the daily practice. And I realized also that I knew much more than I thought I did.
yeah, and I felt like in India too, there's just so much color everywhere. Like the women are always dressed really beautifully in like bright colors and everything. Like ended up at a wedding and it was just like so many bright colors everywhere. So to wear white in a space where everybody else is so like outshining, I can imagine is so difficult.
Yeah, and I think I wanted to really experience India too. Like we were here and we are in this ashram, and there's a very special circumstance, and it was beautiful for the training, but I felt very called. I was like, wait a minute, I'm here. I'm in India. I want to like go be in India. So
Right.
yeah.
And then after that, you went to, did we
I
meet in Egypt after that? Or was there something?
well, I had a plan to go to Nepal. But with the crew, with a group of people that I met at the ashram, we ended up going to Varanasi. So that was really amazing and intense and beautiful. One of the oldest cities in the world, where that's where they bring their loved ones to cremate them on the ghats on the Ganga. And it's just, it's so full of spiritual charge and just transcendence, and, a lot of the liminal space in between life and death and rebirth, and all that is just so alive there and so expanded there. So that was really amazing. And then I went up to Nepal thinking I was going to do the Annapurna circuit. And when I got there, Spirit was like, no, 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 you're not. I was in yoga, doing yoga all month, and I got there and it was some like weird thing in my hip. I could barely walk down the street. Felt like I had a wrench in my hip. And you had invited me to Egypt. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to I found an ashram just north of Kathmandu. And I went and stayed up in the hills outside of Kathmandu, and did some more, like much more contemplative yoga in an ashram there. And then it was just clear. It's like, why aren't you taking this invitation? Go to Egypt. So I went back to Kathmandu and I made my arrangements and I met you. Yeah.
Yeah. And Egypt was magical.
What was
And
fun about Egypt and your invitation is that you invited and then you got gifted that cruise from your uncle, right?
yes, yep,
So then you weren't even there to receive me in Cairo, right? So I had to like
right.
navigate and figure out Cairo by myself, which which at that time I think I was still, I mean, it was a big leap to go there in the first place, and then to just, kind of being thrown in to doing it on my own. However, it just didn't take me long at all to like figure it out. Like the anxiety is there
Right.
for like a day or two, and then you meet your people. Especially, I mean, I'm pretty gregarious and um, outspoken, but yeah, the Egyptian people are too. So they meet you there, and I think one thing about Egypt that I tell people is that you really need to know what you're looking for, and you will get help finding it. But if you don't know, you're going to get pulled into somebody's shop or somebody's thing, and you're going to get pulled into
Yes.
all these little swirls. And you might get, you might happily be giving your money to somebody at the end of that experience and then walk away, be like, what just happened?
It is like Cairo is it truly is chaos. And if you can't harness the energy of being there, then it'll harness you,
Yes.
you know? And
Yes.
even like being by the pyramids, that's like massive. The energy of the pyramids is just unexplainable.
Yeah.
And when you're there and I lived by the entrance of the pyramids for 2 months, and just being right there in front of the pyramids and like hearing the mosque go off tons of times a day, 15 mosques, one like a second after another, and then seeing how chaotic the town was that I was living in. And then I'm also like, I just got out from India and I'm still practicing my Ashtanga and I'm still meditating. So I'm, at a level of balance while there's like this vortex happening around me. You know,
Yes. Yes.
it's so wild. And honestly, yeah, it's just such a magical experience. And I mean, we had such a great experience together too. I remember um, the scuba diving incident.
Yes.
The scuba diving experience. You are a master diver, and then we go and we show up in this tiny, tiny town on the Red Sea, and we're like, let's go diving because we had heard that it was a good place to go.
Marsalam.
And this,
Yeah.
yes, and that man just like basically threw me into the water and was like, "You got it."
He did. He totally did.
It was
And
so crazy.
I mean, thank goodness it was like those reefs were just right off the beach. I mean, it was just
Right.
incredible. All we had to do was go wade in right to like our chest, and you get under and the reefs are right there. And we got to, I mean, you could have just snorkeled it, but I think, we were excited about teaching you how to dive and use the scuba equipment. It was so funny.
It was so funny. And we had such a crazy experience traveling from, was it Luxor that we met, I think? And then we had to take the,
No, I met you in Hurghada. I got a bus from um I got a bus from Cairo to Hurghada to meet you. And I think we met in
okay.
Hurghada. And
And
then
then
we
we
went
traveled.
down. Yeah, we took a bus down to Marsa Alam. And yeah, so we spent a few days in Hurghada, which was sweet, and met some amazing Egyptians there.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then went to Marsa Alam and did a little bit of diving and realized like, wow, that is really not, there's like hardly any tourism in Marsa Alam. There's like nothing hardly there
Right.
unless it's like some kind of tucked away private resort, right? So just the city or the town.
Yeah. Well, we took the microbus, which is like the way that the locals travel. And I remember Noor telling me, he's like, most of the locals don't even travel that way. And you and I get on this microbus, which is like a 4 rows in this like white van. And they pick us up and we're both like covered up, have like our backpacks and stuff. And the whole bus is filled with just men and the two of us just sitting in the back.
Totally.
And I didn't feel unsafe, to be
I didn't
honest.
I didn't either.
I just I don't think I ever really felt unsafe traveling Egypt at all.
Well, you have the advantage where you speak Arabic, so or at least you
That's true.
understand and speak a little bit of Arabic, and that's where I felt really safe traveling in that way with you there.
Right.
Maybe I wouldn't have made those choices if I didn't have somebody speaking Arabic next to me.
Right.
But
Yeah. I mean,
at the same time, like you, and then you had to help get me on a bus because we parted ways. You went somewhere else after Marsa Alam, and I got a bus to Aswan.
yes. Yeah. Well, and I remember prior to meeting you that I had taken multiple microbuses from southern Red Sea all the way up to Dahab. And like, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to people that haven't been to Egypt, but I took multiple different ones. And I remember getting into one, it was all men, and I sat in the front and I was like, just sit in the front, front seat. Nobody will bother you. Nobody did. And then the
Hmm.
second one was like those old Mercedes cars with like the multiple rows in it. And it was actually a beautiful experience. Like the men, I remember it was all men again in the car, and we stopped to get food, and I went to meditate on a rock in front of the ocean. And I come back and they're like, we were so worried about you. Like, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I was just praying. And they're like, oh, wow. Like, it was just such a wholesome experience. What was your favorite part about being in Egypt? And do you have any advice to people that are traveling to Egypt or would like to?
Well, obviously, I mean, it's such a something that I didn't realize, which that trip kicked off in a much bigger way is that in within those, because I just kept traveling. Once I was done after that year of traveling, I came back and I didn't want to stop. I was like, I'm not done yet. And so I closed my office space down completely, got rid of my stuff in my storage unit and kept going. And in those 2 years, I completed this, what I felt was like a magic carpet ride going to all the major vortexes on the planet. So there's actually chakras of the planet, and Egypt and the Great Pyramids and that whole Nile River Valley are one of the major chakras of the planet. And I think that was the biggest highlight of being there is just the magic that you can tap into if you're in your pure presence and you're really listening to your whole body, mind, spirit, and opening your heart there. Really magical things happen. So I know I was witness to all of that, and you know, two of the people that I ended up touring the Great Pyramids with I'm still in contact with them and still friends with them. And I, Carly is in Australia. Like I ended up in Australia for the pandemic, and I, spent some time with her there. So those connections just last, and the synchronicities are pretty profound in terms of getting what you need on a spiritual level, like what,
Right.
yeah, getting some questions answered that and just got and dropping in it for Egypt. It's really so imbued with mystery and magic there. And so there was a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I ended up
And
meeting a really incredible spiritual teacher. I've been back, and I hosted a tour this past February, and I'm looking to host another um, tour this February. So I'm putting that up. It's up on my website. Um,
yeah. And did you have any daily practices that you felt like kept you more in balance and more in tune that you did?
I mean, at this point, I do a short morning meditation, every day, when I get out of bed, right when I wake up. But in terms of just like moving my body, I kind of do it all the time. Like I'm like with it all the time. Like if something wants to be adjusted, or like I'm really
Right.
in that practice. Yeah, sometimes I'll lay my mat out and do a proper, like hour or longer practice. But I think right now my practice is just pure presence all the time. Like life is ceremony, life is your spiritual path. So like just, you know stay present.
Absolutely. So, for people that find it hard or people that are fighting depression, anxiety, do you have anything that you feel like in the moment can bring you back in to that present?
Yeah, breath, just like self touch. I think that practice of internal compassion or forgiveness, if there's something that, you know in, I think a lot of depression and anxiety stems from, not feeling in control of your situation and not knowing how to reconcile whatever's happening around you or within you in the bigger picture scope of things. So
Right.
I'm always like guiding people to just like zoom out. So what's the higher perspective here? How does this work in the divine right order? Like how could this possibly be in service to you and your situation that you just can't even possibly fathom or think of right now? Like just be creative with your thinking, be creative with your heart, be generous with people, and try and I don't know, help. There's like, so people are complex, so we can easily really project on an idea of who somebody is onto them. So if like the depression or anxiety is stemming from some interrelational thing, well, maybe there's like more grace needed for the other person, and maybe you need to be looking at their situation a little bit differently and with more space to and permission for them to be human too, you know.
Right. Yeah. And also just having people in your life too that support that outlook, that can help be a mirror to you. Like our relationship, I feel like I get that I learn a lot from you. And so
um,
it's really beautiful to have friends like that, to be able to be like, hey, I'm stuck in a rut. How do I change my perspective?
yes,
There's like a little bit of guidance in that. It's like surrounding yourself with people that you want to most be like or have similar outlooks to, you know?
yes, that's so vital. I really feel like, yeah, you should be surrounding yourself with the people that you admire and that you want to become more like. Yeah, rather than people that are kind of holding you back into some of the old patterns that you don't really want to participate in anymore. And it really is that simple. It's like totally about choice.
No, it is. And at the end of the day, it's like putting people in your life that are expanders who, um, let's say, I don't know, you want to own a yoga studio. Well, you would want somebody in your life that owns a yoga studio so that your brain understands that this is possible.
Yeah.
So it could be over anything small, whether it's somebody who practices pure presence all the time, and that's something that you want to practice, that you have somebody in your life that practices those things. And also just being super selective with the energy instead of you using the word time, because I feel like that's a huge thing that we were like, we don't have time. It's like I don't have the energy for this. I'm using my energy for something else.
Yes.
and being more specific on where we're putting our energy
Yeah.
as opposed to where we're putting our time, because time isn't something that we can control.
Yeah. Or if the universe is putting something in your face constantly that you're like, I really don't want that. Why does it keep coming in? Why does it keep coming in? Why is it doing the internal work of being like, well, what is it in me that's attracting that? Or what is it that I'm trying to, why is the universe showing me this? Like really being accountable for that internal work too, where it's like, okay, well, this is really annoying to me,
Right.
And so like, what is that about? Like, why, what's triggering me here? Like doing the inventory internally,
Yeah.
and trying to figure out the puzzle of why that lesson keeps coming forward and why I keep
Right.
getting
Because
challenged in that way.
right. And at the end of the day, we're in a space, and I've had this conversation so much lately. I feel like it's you at the end of the day are telling the universe what you deserve. So for you to accept that same relationship or same job or whatever it is, you're telling the universe, like, I'm okay with this.
Mm.
But then you're also unhappy. So are you actually okay with it? And will you make the decision to elevate
Mm-hmm.
and to have raise your frequency up to what you want,
Mm.
you know?
And the biggest challenge for so many people is actually finding the finding some ease and grace in the unknown, and the really just stepping out of what you're comfortable with. I think but that's what travel really opens up for, you know, for people. If you're able, and I really recommend this, if people are able to leave space that's unplanned in their travel itineraries, to
Yeah,
let yourself just be guided, um, really organically and naturally by it's harder in groups, I'll have to say. Like you need to have organization and structure
absolutely.
when you're in your group. But if you're going to travel solo, leave a lot of unstructured time because the universe is going to reflect you back so purely because you are out of your patterns, so then it's just this like super ripe opportunity for growth and magic and spontaneity and really having conversation in the present moment with like with all the things around you and the people and the environment,
Right.
what it's evoking for you.
Yeah, I love what you said about patterns. I didn't really think of it that way, but it's true. We do leave the patterning behind, and also who people think we are. Like
Yes.
at home, people are holding us to this standard of being, and it's like, you are this person, but I don't have to live up to who everybody thinks I am when I'm traveling because I can be whoever I want. And it's
Yes.
really authentic, you know?
And you can do that. Like I had a big play with that in my younger years too, at like festivals and stuff, because you can do that. You can really just like decide, oh, this is the character that this is the part of self that I want to like play out in this space. And let's see
Right.
what kind of response I get from that. And there's no risk because it's just a weekend, you can even change your name, like
Yeah.
go over a
Just
different name
do like a full on makeover.
pull over, just like, this is how I'm going to dress. This is what I'm going to try this thing on and see how it feels. You get to do that
Yeah,
when you're traveling, and that's so fun.
absolutely. And there's so much that traveling brings up. It's brings you down to your truest, rawest form. It's like everything that it's it's just so interesting because I feel like traveling has put me through so many tests. Even if it's a little test, like I missed my bus to Croatia. And well, now I'm like sitting at this bus station and I'm like, damn it, I shouldn't have missed the bus. I got to figure it out now. Like, what am I going to do? And it puts you in these uncomfortable situations that you have to learn to get yourself out of.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn to be more fluid. For me, it was like, okay, now you're learning to be very fluid. And you're just learning to like roll with the punches. All right, I missed my bus. Now what's next? What do I do next? You
Yes.
know? And then you run into somebody that's a backpacker that's like, oh, I actually like missed my bus too. Like, let's head to whatever, and it's just so fluid. It like really puts you in a space of being able to just go through and feel how things feel
Mm-hmm.
and be okay with it. And
Mm.
I feel like at home, sometimes we don't really get that freedom.
No, we don't give ourselves permission to be open like that, you know, because
Right.
we're so scheduled or we're so planned or we have a pattern of the way we get to work or we get to the grocery store this way and we So we just don't have our, or like, yeah, or we're, we think we don't have time. We think we don't have time. Being here in Sedona, I was at the grocery store, and this woman looked at me like she recognized me, and I started to be like, whoa, do I know her? Because she also looked like somebody that I knew. And just from that alone, we just dropped into this major conversation. We're like talking about star knowledge at the end of a 2-minute conversation, it's like at the grocery store.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like being open to these moments and not being so shut off to the world around us. And I feel like our phones play a huge role in that, where you're out at dinner with friends or you're at the park and whatever it is, and you're just on your phone. And that completely takes away from that pure presence that we're talking about, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And I have a similar story, like the grocery store that I go to all the time. I met this man there. He works there, super nice, always smiley. And we just drop into conversation, like really deep, you know? And every time I see him now, that's what it's like. I saw him yesterday and he's like, oh, so like this has been happening in my crystals and this. And it's just so wild because I'm like, had I not been in pure presence in the grocery store, I would have never met this man and had these like deep conversations every time I'm there and every time I see him,
Mm-hmm.
and there's just so much gratitude to moments like that, because it's like sometimes we're just so closed off.
Mm-hmm. I love
Yeah.
what you're saying about the phones too. It's like, yeah, there's such a process that I feel like is begging to be had amongst, a certain generation, where it's like, how do you use this as the tool that it is, and not this complete drain of life force energy, because, or distractor, because everything's asking for your attention right now, like, and especially in technology, right? It's like, look at
Yeah.
me, look at me, look at me, look at me. So how do you come back to this part of you, of you, and be like, well, what is it that I really want to know about or explore? And can I use this amazing technology as a tool rather than have it use me, as a product or whatever.
I feel like all these massive companies are paying trillions of dollars to learn about our attention. Like, if that doesn't show you enough how important our attention and energy is, I don't know what would. Like, these businesses are paying so much money, and
Mm-hmm.
constantly it's like, what are you looking at? How long are you looking at it for? How can we grab your attention even more? Because they know that our attention, if it's just like water, it's like when it's trickled around, it doesn't really do much, but when it's shot into one specific area, it can literally cut through glass.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just crazy to think that we have our attention literally everywhere,
Yeah. And
you
our
know?
attention and our focus is power. It is power. And so if you're just willy-nilly giving that away to all these things, somebody else is taking that energy and that power, and so people don't understand that. And I don't think as deeply as it is. And I don't, I have this whole theory right now about, because I've had some kind of internal work that in reconciling AI as anything, as something that's important for. So I'm trying to figure out, like, well, why is it coming through? My hope, my prayer is that the AI is actually going to create such a weird distortion in reality in these screens that it's actually going to be so distasteful to be in them that more people will be out in the reality. I'm
Yeah, well, I
hoping that
mean,
it's going to make us jump the shark for this whole bullshit social media. Like,
right. Well, and there are people that are viewing it that way now. And I feel like as of lately, that feels that people are tapping in more to themselves and realizing how we are affected by our phones and technology and how to harness that energy for ourselves. I spoke to a friend about AI, and he's like, I understand that a lot of people are like, kind of against AI, but he's like, I use it to be an outlet of myself. Like, I can use it to be like, okay, this is me, and these are the things that I need you to help me with. But I'm directing that energy in a way that I can use it for myself,
mm,
as an extension of yourself,
mm-hmm,
as opposed to using it for everything at all times. People are like writing music and poems and all papers and all kinds of stuff and not using their brains for it. But he's like, I'm using it as an extension of myself. And AI at the end of the day is also just pulling all these things off the internet that were written by people,
Mm.
you know?
What people don't understand is that that creative process, you know, because that's what we're kind of talking about. We're talking about like
Right.
AI substituting the creative process or supplementing it or something. Um, People don't understand the creative process in and of itself is a sublimator. It's like that. It's a generator. It's a charging of your own battery. It's a self-generational process. So if you're kind of like using another thing that is not organic to do that, I don't know how much. I, I think you're losing some value in the process. You know what I mean? I don't.
Absolutely.
I'm not exactly. I still haven't formed my thoughts completely around that, but I think this is another thing that kind of loops back into travel because it really begs you, especially if you're not completely scheduled out, it really begs you to stay creative in the moment, you know, yeah, oh, this isn't going as planned. Okay, I gotta like change and how do I generate the next directional navigation piece? And you know, that whole thing is so creative and it's so life-giving, you know, it's a really recharging of our battery, our internal battery, because we're generating something new.
Yeah. And I always say it's like you travel to disconnect and then also come back to learn a new way of reconnecting.
Mm.
You know, it gives us like such a different perspective on our lives here at home and so much gratitude for having a home in our own space and being able to have a backyard and just these like simple little things that we don't, I won't say we, but a lot of people would not sit here and be grateful for, you
Yes.
know? And having a phone that doesn't work when you travel, which for the most part, I mean, my phone will say I have service, but it doesn't actually work, you know? And it just creates that full presence. Like now I'm practicing being present. I can't just take my phone and sit there and scroll around, you know? And even if I could, I need to be aware of my surroundings because I'm in a new space, you
Mm.
know? So I almost don't allow myself to have that time to just sit there and scroll through my phone.
Mm-hmm. Part of the game I've been playing, you know, more recently in my travels is like finding the spaces there is not service at all. Like you can't, like there's just not. So there's more spaces on this planet than we realize that are just wide open nature. And that is so uplifting for me because I think the narrative is that, you know, we've just completely polluted and taken, you know, taken over all of these spaces, but it's not. Like I think the majority of the land on the planet is pretty wild still.
Yeah. Well, so earlier you spoke about traveling to the vortexes of the world. Where did you go?
Egypt, so I'll just go root to crown. So, right, we have Mount Shasta in California as the root chakra of the planet. And sacral chakra is Lake Titicaca in Peru, which is also Machu Picchu complex is part of that chakra. We have Uluru, which is also known as Ayers Rock in Australia, so solar plexus chakra of the planet. The whole Glastonbury and the British Isles and even the Emerald Isles of Ireland are part of the heart chakra of the planet. Um, the throat chakra is Egypt. The third eye travels around, so it's moving in these big dragon ley lines. So there's this beautiful image that I share on my website about it's an image of the earth, and you can see how these major dragon ley lines work like the two major nadis, the Ida and Pingala
Right.
nadi in the body. You know, so we're just the microcosm of this beautiful planet. I mean, we are literally made up of her matter. That's like a trip, right? Like we came in and our mothers like ate food to like make our cellular body, which is like of the earth. So we are
Right.
literally like walking like examples of the earth. So,
Mm-hmm.
anyways, the crown chakra is up in the Himalayas, and Kailash is the very like apex of that crown chakra energy, but it's all throughout the Himalayas. I've done a lot of work now in Nepal as well in the Himalayas, so it's all pretty. incredible crown chakra energy up there. And yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
little spinner wheels too that are kind of mystical, or like Bali, for example, is a crossing place, a place where those lines cross. And so there's like a purification portal in Bali. And Mount Fuji is like a minor, like it's like an immortality portal out there in Japan.
Wow.
Cape Town and Table Mountain. That's one I still haven't been to, actually, that I'm hoping to get to at the end of the year, by the end of the year, the beginning
Yeah.
next. That's a little spinner wheel, and I feel like that holds a real kind of it's almost like a yin yang with the way the earth and the water work together at that point. There's just like this really incredible swirling energy happens there. Hawaii is a spinner wheel. So the islands of Hawaii are like, if you look at the Pacific plate and where the rim
Mm-hmm.
is around the Pacific plate, Hawaii is like almost dead center. And Mauna Kea is the mountain on the Big Island. And that,
Mm-hmm.
if you track it from where it starts at the bottom of the ocean up to how high it is, which is almost 10,000 feet, which is wild that it's on the Big Island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Whoa.
It's almost seen as one of the tallest mountains in the world because of that. Because if you go from the earth underneath the ocean all the way to the top.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Amazing.
crazy.
So that's a
Yeah.
spinner wheel out there in the middle of the Pacific. That a lot of people think of that as like an ancient Lemurian vortex portal, like our ancient
Interesting.
civilization Lemuria. New
Yeah.
Zealand has a spot too in Lake Taupo, North Island area that
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been there. During the pandemic, I was in Australia, and they were pretty locked down the whole time. Like just they
Right.
didn't allow for tours and to come in and out of New Zealand, or else I was so close. I was like, oh,
It's like just right
it's
there.
right there. I want to go visit the new. Like they would, like I feel like a
Oh.
lot of people in the spiritual community talk about that as being like new Lemuria, like the birthing of a new Lemurian energy frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's one, another place I haven't been is so there's a point that's just north of Moscow, actually, which I think is super interesting.
Really
Yeah, that it's a very divine land-based vortex place. Moscow is.
interesting.
I know.
I would love to do that part of Europe, but I've not been. Yeah.
I'd love to
I've
do
like done
Russia.
Eastern Europe and stuff, but I haven't stepped into like Ukraine and Russia quite yet.
I know. Same. Same. It's a
Um,
big step, and I don't even know if it's allowed for U.S. citizens. Like I don't even know if we're
well,
allowed.
yeah, at this point, I don't know if it's allowed for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, I also felt like Key Kulker. That felt like a swirling vortex of wildness.
Yes. Well, that whole, the energy pathway of one of those major ley lines, I don't remember if it's the male or female, goes from Lake Titicaca through Machu Picchu up through Colombia and Ecuador, and goes up through. It's like then you start tracking that Pacific rim. So like it goes through
Okay.
Guatemala, and then you have like all that energy that, from um, Yucatan and like the sacred sites of Palenque and Oaxaca, and like you get into Mexico, and so there's like
Hmm.
this, yeah, you can track it, and it goes all the way up the coast, and that's where you get a lot
Right.
of magic around some of the places in California, and it goes all the way up to Mount Shasta. So there's this huge, tracking of a ley line, major ley line that goes all the way through.
Yeah. Well, and now you've made Mount Shasta your home,
Yes,
which is
yes,
so exciting.
I know. That was a
And I know that,
miracle.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you had been traveling for a while, so you picking and, rooting down in Mount Shasta, what was the calling? Why?
It was not even my choice, honestly, at this point in time. I just feel like what do they call it? And I always said I'm like walking, I'm like a hollow tube. I'm just like a vessel for like spirit to unfold. Like what, I just read a quote the other day. It was like, life is God unfolding, and I just feel like I'm just in this practice of trust and surrender so much now that the divine design is coming through, and I didn't have a plan to even ground in the States. I've been out of the States for 5 years, since 2018.
Right.
And, I came back thinking I would just do a big road trip around, because I do work on the land, like I do also energy clearing, and I'm an energy healer. So I do clearing, I drop my channel into the earth, I receive, I listen a lot. I listen a lot to what wants to be witnessed that's not being witnessed. Like, it's a kind of form of spiritual stewardship of the land, right? So when I came back to the States, I was like, oh, I'm just going to do this big road trip and like see how North America's doing, just like get my tap on, like where she
How
needs
it's
some
going over
love,
there.
how's
Yeah.
she going over, where she needs some love, where she needs some support. And
Yeah.
and I went up to Mount Shasta pretty like directly, because that's really, I feel like, my soul home. And I was looking at properties here, when I got spit out of San Francisco, I was like, well, maybe it's Shasta. So I was looking a little bit then, that time 5 years ago. Yeah, so I went up there, I stayed with a friend, was just hanging out with the mountain. And again, it's one of these places that just synchronicity just is there. It's not, you don't have to work for it. You don't have to like be open to it even. It's just in your face almost. And so I ran into a realtor that I had talked to 5 years ago, and she goes, oh my gosh, Melanie, I remember you. I have a house that's going up on the market in 2 days. You want to go see it? So it wasn't even on the market yet. And there were just too many layers. In fact, I tried to say no 2 or 3 times. And Spirit was like, no, you're gonna take this house. We're gonna make it easy for you.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
easy that you couldn't say no.
It was like, oh, so like I saw it on the day before the solstice. I was up there to support my teachers in a initiation practice that they do every summer solstice. And the next day I went back to see it again and just walked the land a little bit. I saw all 4 of my grandparents' totem animals on the land the day of
Oh,
solstice.
wow.
Yeah. And then I found out the house belonged to this couple that owns like an institution in Mount Shasta, Soul Connections. It's a metaphysical bookstore and crystal shop. I've done deals with them in the past, wholesale deals, and they know me. And I
So
talked to
crazy.
Catherine. Yeah, they owned it before this couple did. And so it's their family home. And knowing that, I was like, oh my God, if Bruce and Catherine own this place, like it's just magic. They've probably already done so much with working with the elementals of the land and whatnot. And then the
Yeah.
next day, I went again with a friend to the property to check it out. There's this huge, this majestic buck that like lives at the house. I'm just like,
Really?
yeah, like he goes and like sleeps on the side of the house during the afternoon. That's like grandpa's totem animal. It's amazing. So I was like, okay.
Oh, wow.
So we named him C Ray, Cosmic Ray. Ray's my grandpa's name. So we named him Cosmic
Oh,
Ray.
Ray.
C Ray for
That's
short.
so sweet. I love that so much.
Yeah.
Oh,
So really,
wow.
it's actually more than just a house. It doesn't even feel like a house, because I gave all my stuff away already. Like I did the thing, where it's like let go of self, just be in service. Um and then this service project, my business, well, it's not a business, it's a service project called Star Body Earth. That's my website that I landed and grounded that, the most current version of that website, last year on 9/9. And it feels like the house is like a physical manifestation of the structure that I put together of what these offerings and teachings are that I have to fill in and do. So there's a lot of work to be done. I feel like there's a lot of work to flesh out some of the course material that I want to put out there in the world. And yeah, I have some services, and then I have these tours. I'm asking Spirit, like, how am I going to do this? I'm going to have this like small retreat space in Mount Shasta, because it's more than a house. It's really like almost a 4,000 square foot home, and there's a detached studio on some acreage. And yeah, so it's going to be a small retreat space for people to come experience Mount Shasta, you know be held. And it's almost like a modern ashram. I'm going to have practice in the morning, every morning in the studio, and we'll have really great high quality food available. Yeah.
So you took your first Star Body Earth tour to Nepal,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
how was that? Because I know you had been in Nepal prior to that, prior
Yes.
to running the tour. But how
Yeah.
was your experience all around in Nepal?
Oh my God. That was such an incredible journey because it was so off the beaten path. And I don't think I would have done something like that by myself.
Right.
So actually hosting and facilitating that we did the sacred pilgrimage of Ganesh, which is also an amazing thing to do for the first thing you do. You know, Ganesh is like the first god you say hello to and give reverence to. He's like the person at the temple gate. He's like, he's the god that's just like, yeah, you say hi to him first. So
Right.
we did that, and it wasn't just like a typical, Annapurna or Langtang trek where you have tea houses kind of every 3 hours or something. Um, we were in the wilderness. We were in the Himalayas straight up for like 6 or 7 days in tents, and you know, cooking on the land, and walking through some pretty rugged country that we didn't see anybody for 5 or 6 days, not even a Nepalese person.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was just our crew and our team. And there was these beautiful lakes. The reason why we did that tour is to go visit. So it's in the Ganesh Himal area, the region of the Himalayas. But there's this Kalo and Setokunda, black and white lake, and there's a lot of mythology around that, and a lot of blessings to be had with that, the balance of the light and the dark. So we went to do ceremony at that place.
And
Yeah,
what is the mythology behind the lake?
yeah. Well, there's the beep, beep. If you're walking in the right way, if you're walking in balance, and if you're walking in, alignment with creator, like it's a huge blessing place. And I think if you're not, your karma is like quickening. So
Well,
it's, yeah. So it's a pretty cool spiritual track to like, yeah, engage in.
yeah.
It really
So
asks you as you're walking, to kind of take an inventory of where am I in alignment, and where am I not? And how do I want to
yeah,
reconcile that?
sure.
Yeah.
But the whole tour that you did was longer than 5 or 6 days, right? It was like,
Yes. So every tour that I do is 13 days, and then I put a arrival and departure day on either side because I track and follow the Mayan calendar and the galactic calendar that was channeled, remembered by Jose Argüelles. That is working with cycles of time, and 13 is really important cycle of time. And so, yeah, there's an archetype that we work with at each one of those Earth activation tours. And the archetype we were working with in Ganesh Himal was the serpent wave spell. So then we play with those energies too when I'm guiding people through practice and through meditation, through these like Earth activation ceremonies. um, I'm helping people connect with those ancient patterns and rhythms of time space.
so for people that don't know about the Mayan calendar, could you explain a little
Sure. Um,
bit?
well, our calendar, the Gregorian calendar, is actually a creation from the Catholic Church. It's, Pope Gregory created that calendar out of pagan wheel of the year, and also a lot of these holidays that they were promoting around Christ. So it doesn't have anything to do with natural time at all.
Right.
It's kind of like tuning a piano to 440. It's like ugh, like it doesn't work with our body system. Like it's not organic. It doesn't work. So it kind of puts us into a bit of a dissonance just tracking the calendar the way we track it. Most indigenous cultures and even like Arabic and Chinese cultures work with a lunar calendar, or they work with 13 moon calendar. So that was kind of thrown out the door. And when Jose Argüelles came back and remembered this Mayan calendar that he originally seeded in Palenque as Pakalwatan, that was like something that was tracking cycles and cycles within cycles of time. So it's like you track the 4 within the 7, within the 13, within the 20, within the 28. And it's like, it's this incredible unfoldment of pattern that is found in nature and found not even just in our planet, not in only in our solar system, but in throughout all of the ways the cosmic unfoldments occur. So it's like, and it's infinite. So when we're working with those patterns, we get totally in sync with natural time on like a big cosmic level. And when that happens, your synchronicity just like exponentially amplifies. So that's, I feel like if I recommend anybody do anything to like get to their ascended state of being, or like, ecstatic ascended state of being, it's like, well, just track natural time. It's very easy. It's like the simplest way. It feels like a shortcut to just like getting there like that. Yeah.
So what do you think, what kind of practice would somebody need to implement to tap into that?
Yeah, there's some, so I use this, there's a couple of resources there. You can go to 13moon.org. They have wall calendars that are gorgeous with visionary artwork. And I have a handful of those that I just get a bunch every year, and I try and distribute as many as I can, because I really feel like I want to get like the whole world.
Yeah.
So there's a referendum. There's a bunch of people in the world that like, this is a global thing. A lot of people are using these calendars. So there's a referendum to get the whole world tracking this natural time way by 2028. So it's not that far away.
Yeah, 4 more years.
Okay, 4 more years. We can do it. So I keep talking about it. Yeah. And then there's also an app, 1320 Sync is the app. And so that's, again, a super easy way to just track it every day. Just look at the archetype, look at the tone of the day. And there's a daily affirmation that you can read. And when you do that daily affirmation, I mean, that's a 2-second thing you can do every day. And you wouldn't, what happens is it just starts to get into your subconscious. You're like, oh, another 12 is coming around, or oh, another monkey is coming around. Like, you start to just get into the flow of that 1320 relationship. And then the colors are marking like a 4. So you get, oh, it's another blue day. It's another. So you just kind of start taking that in, and your subconscious just goes, okay, this is the clock now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also too, traveling pulls us away from that. I so many times while I'm traveling, I'm like, I don't even know what day it is. Like, okay, the moon's at, okay, got it, And so I just completely disconnect with our calendar and our time. I'm like, I don't even know what day it is. I don't know what time it is. All I know is that the moon's about to be full. Got it. Cool. Like, we're good.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. It's really the full presence.
And that's, I was talking to my friend about it. I said, if you spend enough time in nature, you don't need this calendar. But if you're trying to also be in a city and be in our modern culture and do that, this is a way that it can keep you in the rhythm of nature. And you would be amazed at how things just start unfolding with much more ease and grace. Sitting in a cave in the Himalayas, just meditating all the time, you're going to be automatically in tune with the natural rhythms and cycles of time and space. But
absolutely,
with all this inorganic stuff we have around us, we need a little bit of support.
Yeah. I know. And I love that you brought up like surrendering, because that's what it is. You're surrendering to nature and everything that's around us that we're a part of, that we are,
Mm-hmm.
And surrender is such a huge topic to bring up, because it's like we fight so much sometimes with wanting something to be a specific way.
Yes.
And then at the end of the day, you end up having to surrender, but you fought for like months and weeks and years or whatever it is. And then you surrender at the end. It's like, well, if you would have just surrendered in the beginning, we wouldn't have had to go through this.
You have no idea what blessings are underneath those resistances.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just there's people that are okay being comfortable in the dis-ease or the chaos or whatever it is, because they are afraid of what might be on the other side.
Correct, because it's not known. Right. And you can't know it. You have to just trust.
Absolutely.
And really hard for people, I think.
Well, because that also comes with, do you trust yourself? Mm-hmm. I think that's like the main first thing is, can you trust yourself? Because if you can trust yourself, you can outwardly trust as well. But
Mm.
if we're choosing to have people be who we trust in and then we don't trust ourselves, it doesn't make sense. Well,
This is
yay. I'm so
so
glad I got you
sweet.
on here.
I
Yeah.
know.
And then I'll probably post up your website in the bio so that people can tap in and see what you've been doing.
Instagram, Facebook, that's where you can find me on. Like I'm just Star Body Earth on everything.
Perfect. Yay.
Yay. Oh
I
my
love
God.
you. Thank you for
I love
showing
you
up today.
too. I love you too. And you're welcome. And thanks for doing this. It's really great. It's really great to just keep sharing, sharing, sharing. I think there's so many
Yeah.
people that need to hear these messages, and we just need to be unified voice on topics like this. So it's really
Mhm.
great.
Yay.
Inspiring.